Hi there, in this video I'm going to show you how to do composition of trig functions. So let's start with question 1. So we have cosine composed of sine of -1 of x. So basically, okay, let's write this over here so we have a little bit more room. Cosine sine -1 of x. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to set this equal to theta, and therefore you can rewrite this as sine of theta is equal to x. So now also consider the fact that theta is going to be from -pi to pi/2. So that means that therefore we have that cosine of theta is going to be positive, because like that's going to be, this is like this is sine -1x range. Okay, great. So now after this we have to interpret sine theta is equal to x. So that's basically, yeah, so you know that's opposite over hypotenuse. So basically now you can create like a right triangle. Now with this right triangle you have this, and you have the opposite is going to be x, so that's going to be the opposite, and you have the hypotenuse is equal to 1. Oops, okay, 1, that's hypotenuse. And the adjacent, okay, we don't have that. So how do we get that? We use the Pythagorean theorem. So x squared plus y squared, we're just going to call this like, okay, that's kind of like weird though. Okay, I'm just going to call this a squared is equal to 1 squared. And now, okay, you just want to get a squared, right? So that's 1 squared minus x squared. So then that's just the square root of that. So it's just going to be 1 minus x squared. So yeah, that's just going to equal to 1 minus x squared. So yeah, great. Okay, awesome. Now you want to take the cosine. You want to take the cosine of that. So like now you're just going to you're going to compute cosine of theta, because like that's equal to theta. So like now cosine of theta, this is going to equal to adjacent over the hypotenuse, and the adjacent over the hypotenuse is equal to, according to the triangle that we just created, it's going to be 1 minus x squared over 1, which is just equal to 1 minus x squared. Great, awesome. So that's literally it. It's really not like that hard. Okay, after this now we have we have sine cosine -1 to the x. Now we're going to let this equal to theta. So therefore we can rewrite this as cosine of theta is equal to x. So now we have to consider the fact that the theta is going to be on 0 to pi. So therefore we know that okay, I need water. So we know that sine is going to be greater than or equal to 0. So, and also we can interpret this. That's going to be equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So therefore that's equal to 1. Okay, great, awesome. Now we can create this triangle here, and we can make this as theta. So now the adjacent side, that's going to be x, and the hypotenuse is going to be 1, and then the opposite side is going to be over there. Okay, great. So now we have to find the hypotenuse. How do we do that? We have x squared plus O squared is equal to 1 squared. Okay, awesome. O squared is equal to 1 minus x squared. Now take the square root of both sides. O is equal to 1 minus x squared. And we also know that it's positive. Therefore, we have to take the positive root when we took the square root. And also the same thing for up here. We know that it's positive. That's why we have to take the positive root, just as a note for like the future. That's why you have to take the positive root. You take the positive root because like it's from the range of like the functions you get from the function, you get that. Okay, awesome, that's cool. So now we can after this we have to compute like sine of theta, and sine of theta is the opposite over hypotenuse. Awesome. So the opposite side is going to be 1 minus x squared. So that's just 1 minus x squared again, and then the hypotenuse is just 1. So now we can just move on to the next question. Right, so now let's say we have tangent of sine of -1 of x. Okay, so okay, now what do we do? So what you're gonna do is, again, you're gonna set this equal to theta. Now you can rewrite this as sine theta is equal to x. now what do we do next? Well, we can just figure out like that's just one. That's the opposite. That's the hypotenuse. Again, we're literally just going to create another triangle. That's going to be a triangle right there. Awesome. That's theta. What's the opposite side? That's the opposite side. This is the adjacent side. That's the hypotenuse. And the opposite side is just equal to x. The hypotenuse is equal to 1. And then again, what are you going to do? You're going to do x squared plus a squared is equal to 1 squared. Trying to get a squared, you get a squared is equal to 1 minus x squared. Again, a is literally just equal to 1 minus x squared. So that's going to be 1 minus x squared. Awesome. So now, what do? We get that, yeah, you're going to have to compute that tangent of theta. Now, what is that? It's equal to opposite over adjacent. Now, that's the opposite side of that. That's just x. And that's 1 minus x squared. You could rationalize it, but we don't feel like doing that right now. Okay, oops. 1 minus x squared. So we're not going to rationalize it. Okay, I have not been boxing the answers, but it's okay. Now, let's move on to the next one. Okay, oops. 4. So what's 4? 4 basically says that cosine 2 tan negative 1 of x. So now, okay, again, we're going to let this equal to theta. So then and now we have that tangent of theta is equal to x. And yeah, that's awesome. So now, yeah, that's equal to 1. Yeah, that's opposite over adjacent. Now you can create another triangle just as we have done like countless times before. That's theta. That's 90 degrees. Okay, what is the opposite side? That's x. The adjacent side, that's 1. That's adjacent, that's opposite. That's the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is just something. Now, what do you have to find that? How can you find the hypotenuse? Well, you can do that by doing 1 squared plus x squared is equal to h squared. Great, now we take the root of both sides. Now 1 plus x. Okay, yeah. 1 plus x. Oops. 1 plus x squared is just going to equal to the hypotenuse. Okay. 1 plus x squared. Now opposite. Okay. Yeah, so like now we have that cosine of theta is equal to 1 minus 1 plus x squared. Okay, but now we have to use the double angle identity. Do you know why? Because like you see that 2 there, that's like doubling the angle. So now we know that cosine 2 of theta, that's gonna equal to 2 cosine squared of theta minus 1. Awesome. So now we can substitute this in. Now we have 2 times 1 over like 1 plus x squared. Oh gosh, yeah. And then that's gonna be squared minus 1. And then that's going to be equal to 2 times 1 over 1 plus x squared minus 1. Okay, great. Now it's going to be 2 plus 1 plus x squared minus 1. And that's going to be 2 minus 1 plus x squared. And then divide that. Okay, oops. Yeah. 1 plus x squared, that's going to be 1 minus x squared. That's going to be 1 plus x squared. And boom, that's the answer. Okay, great. Now we can do our next problem, which is number 5. So for number 5, let's say we have that sine of 2 cotangent negative 1 of x. Now again, we're gonna let okay, for this one, that's gonna be theta. But okay, let's up here, this is like a little bit more specific. That's gonna be that. Okay, we're just gonna like make it a little more clear for that previous one. That's gonna be theta, so therefore you can rewrite this part specifically as cotangent of theta is equal to x, and then that's gonna be over 1, and then that you could just that's just adjacent over opposite according to the reciprocal of the tangent function. So therefore we can like make a little triangle right here. Cool. So that's gonna be theta, and what's the opposite of that? That's gonna be 1, and then the adjacent side is gonna be x, and then okay, so now you want to find the hypotenuse, huh? So then you do 1 squared plus x squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. So you just take the square root of both sides, and then now 8 is equal to 1 plus x squared. Okay, great, awesome, cool. Now, yeah, you're gonna put that there. That's the hypotenuse. Okay, so now we just have sine 2 theta. Oh my gosh, it's the double angle identity. Hooray. Now we can do 2 sine of theta times cosine of theta. Okay, so now what do we do? So we have like sine 2 of theta, and now this is going to be equal to 2. Now what is sine of theta? Let's actually go find sine of theta right now. Sine of theta is equal to opposite over of our hypotenuse, and then cosine of theta. Cosine of theta is literally just equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So that means that the opposite side, oh, that was just 1, and the hypotenuse is just 1 plus x squared, and then hooray, now adjacent side, that's just x, and then what is the hypotenuse? It's just 1 plus x squared. Oh my gosh, now we can just plug everything in, and it's gonna be like totally like beautiful. That's x squared plus 1, and then this is just gonna be x over x squared plus 1. Oops, okay, wait, that looks like weird. Plus 1, and now all this is gonna simplify to just 2x over x squared plus 1. Hooray. Now yeah, you can box that up. Now let's move on to our final question, question 6. Now for question 6, okay, we're gonna have cosine of 1/2 of cosine of -1 to the x. So now we're gonna just let this equal to theta, and then we're gonna have cosine of theta is equal to, okay, oops, is equal to x. So now also consider that theta has to be a part of 0 to pi. But remember that theta over 2, oh, this is half angle identity. So now you have theta over 2. This is just, you just divided everything by half essentially. So pi over 2. Now that's gonna be, therefore you know that like cosine is like, because of the range restriction you see right here, it has to be like including 0 and greater than 0. So that means that cosine of theta over 2 has to be greater than or equal to 0. So now we're going to use the half angle identity, because that's what our thing literally matches. Like cosine theta over 2, like now that's literally going to equal to, like, we know it has to be positive because of like right here. So that means it's positive. Okay, yeah. So you have 1 plus cosine of theta divided by 2. Okay, oops, like this. Now you can sub in cosine of theta is equal to x. Now we have like you have like 1 plus x divided by 2, and the reason is because of 2 over 1 right here. We have that was cosine of theta, and actually we never even had to solve anything else in terms of another trig function, because it's literally all just cosine here. So yeah, now we just have like this. That's just our solution. Okay, great. Awesome, guys. That was awesome.